The machines hummed their endless symphony in the pediatric ICU, a chorus of beeps and whispers that had become Marcus Chen's entire world. For 47 days, he'd sat in that uncomfortable vinyl chair beside bed number 7, watching his 10-year-old son Danny sleep behind a mask of tubes and wires. The doctor said Danny's brain activity was minimal. The ventilator breathed for him. The feeding tube nourished him. But Danny, the boy who'd once filled their tiny apartment with laughter, who'd drawn elaborate superhero comics on the backs of Marcus's work schedules, who'd never complained about their second-hand everything, that Danny was somewhere far away, trapped in a darkness Marcus couldn't reach. Marcus had sold everything. The car went first, then the furniture, then his late wife's jewelry, the only pieces of her he'd kept after the cancer took her 3 years ago. He'd emptied his savings, maxed out credit cards he didn't know how he'd ever repay, and taken out loans from people he probably shouldn't have. None of it mattered. Danny was all he had left, and he'd burn the whole world down if it meant bringing his son back. But the world, as Marcus had learned, didn't care about love or desperation. It cared about insurance, claims and billing codes, and polite phrases like, exhausted all available options. Yesterday, Dr. Palmer had sat him down, with that expression they all wore, sympathy, mixed with resignation, and explained that Danny's insurance had reached its lifetime maximum. The hospital would continue basic care, but the experimental treatment from Germany, the one that might actually wake Danny up, cost $840,000. It might as well have been $8 million. Marcus worked as a janitor at Rothschild Technologies, one of those gleaming downtown towers where people wore shoes that cost more than his monthly rent. He'd seen the CEO exactly once, a tall man with silver-streaked hair getting into a car that probably cost more than Marcus would earn in a decade. That man, Richard Rothschild, had more money than God, but he lived in a different universe, one where children didn't die because of numbers on a spreadsheet. Tonight, Marcus couldn't sleep. The ICU allowed parents to stay, and he'd become a fixture here. The sad-eyed man in wrinkled clothes, who talked to his unconscious son about nothing and everything. He told Danny about the terrible hospital coffee, about the nice nurse who smuggled him extra crackers, about the pigeon that kept landing on the window ledge like it was checking on them. He told Danny how much he missed him, how the apartment was too quiet, how he'd give anything, his sight, his hearing, his own life, to hear Danny laugh one more time. Around midnight, the ICU doors swung open with unusual urgency. Marcus glanced up, expecting another emergency. Another family joining this nightmare club. Instead, he saw Richard Rothschild himself, still in an expensive suit, but with his tie loosened and his face carved with a panic. Marcus recognized all too well. Behind him rushed doctors and nurses, and they were wheeling in another child, a boy about Danny's age, unconscious, hooked to portable monitors. They placed the boy in bed number 8, right next to Danny. Marcus watched the controlled chaos, the barked orders, the careful efficiency of people trying to save a life. He saw Rothschild standing helplessly at the foot of the bed, this titan of industry reduced to just another terrified father. The boy, his son, had been in a diving accident, Marcus overheard. Brain swelling, critical condition. They were prepping him for emergency surgery, but the surgeon was caught in traffic, 20 minutes out. We need to keep him stable, Dr. Palmer was saying. We need that ventilator and the intracranial pressure monitor, but— Use whatever you need, Rothschild interrupted, his voice cracking. Money isn't an issue. Use everything. Save my son. Dr. Palmer hesitated, and Marcus saw him glance toward Danny's bed. His stomach dropped. Mr. Rothschild, we only have one advanced ventilator available with the pressure monitoring system. The other unit is in maintenance. We need it to keep your son stable until surgery, but— He looked at Marcus. We'd have to transfer Danny Chen to a standard ventilator. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What does that mean? Rothschild demanded. Danny's stable on the advanced system, but his condition is delicate. Moving him to basic support could be risky. How risky? Dr. Palmer's silence was answer enough. Rothschild looked at Marcus for the first time, really looked at him, and Marcus saw his own desperation mirrored back. 2 fathers, 2 sons, 1 machine. Use it, Rothschild said quietly. Save every child you can. Use whatever you need. But Marcus was already standing. He walked to Danny's bedside, his legs moving on autopilot, and placed his hand on his son's cool forehead. He'd been reading about miracles lately, about unexplained recoveries, about the power of faith, or love, or whatever force might exist beyond the clinical sterility of modern medicine. He'd been praying, even though he hadn't prayed since his wife died, because what else could a powerless man do? Marcus turned to face the billionaire, this stranger who was also somehow his brother in this moment, united by the savage love that makes fathers into madmen. "Turn off the machine," Marcus heard himself say. The words came from somewhere beyond thought, beyond self-preservation. "Your son needs it. Take it." The room went silent. Even the monitors seemed to pause. "Mr. Chen," Dr. Palmer started, "you don't have to—" "I know I don't have to." Marcus's voice was steady, despite the earthquake in his chest. "But that boy has a chance. Right now, my son doesn't. I can't afford the treatment that might wake Danny up. But maybe this is what I can afford. Giving someone else's son a chance when mine—" He couldn't finish. Rothschild was staring at him like he'd materialized from another dimension. "You're offering to risk your son's life for mine? I'm offering your son a chance to live." Marcus turned back to Danny, memorizing his face. Danny would do the same thing. He always rooted for the underdog in his comics, always saved the innocent, even if it cost him everything. His voice cracked. "I'm just trying to raise him right." "No." Rothschild stepped forward, and Marcus saw tears on the man's face. "No, I won't let you sacrifice your son for mine. I'll pay for everything. Danny's treatment, the experimental therapy, whatever he needs. I'll fly in the best doctors from Germany tonight. Just don't—" He struggled. "Don't make this trade." Marcus shook his head. "Your money can't buy miracles. That treatment might not even work. But that machine right now can save your boy. That's real. That's certain." "Please," Rothschild whispered. It was probably the first time in decades he'd begged for anything. "There has to be another way." Dr. Palmer's phone rang. He answered, listened, then closed his eyes in relief. "The backup ventilator just came online. Maintenance got it running early. We can use it for the monitoring. It'll work for Connor." The tension shattered like dropped glass. Rothschild actually stumbled, catching himself on the bed rail. But he wasn't looking at his son. He was looking at Marcus. "You were really going to do it," he said. "You were going to let me take that machine." Marcus just nodded, suddenly exhausted down to his bones. What happened next occurred in a blur. Rothschild made phone calls, each one transforming impossibility into reality. By dawn, a medical team from Munich was boarding a private jet. By noon, they were in Danny's room, setting up equipment Marcus had only read about online. By evening, they'd begun the treatment, flooding Danny's brain with compounds that might rewire damaged pathways, that might build bridges across the darkness. Rothschild never left. He sat with Marcus through all of it, two fathers in vigil, while both their sons fought their separate battles. Connor made it through surgery successfully, and the prognosis was good. Danny's treatment would take weeks to show results, if it showed any at all. But something had shifted in the universe that night. Marcus had stood at the edge of the abyss and offered everything. And somehow, impossibly, the abyss had blinked first. 3 weeks later, Marcus was reading one of Danny's comic books. Aloud, something about a hero who could control time, when Danny's fingers twitched. It was so slight Marcus thought he'd imagined it. But then Danny's eyes moved beneath their lids, and then, like someone climbing out of a deep well toward distant light, Danny opened his eyes. "Dad?" The word was barely a whisper, rough from disuse, but it was the most beautiful sound Marcus had ever heard. He was crying, laughing, pressing the call button for the nurse while clutching Danny's hand. "I'm here, buddy. I'm right here." "You're back. Did the hero save everyone?" Danny asked, looking at the comic book. "In the story?" Marcus glanced over his shoulder to where Rothschild had just appeared in the doorway, his own son in a wheelchair beside him, both of them wearing matching grins. "Yeah," Marcus said, his voice thick with joy. "Everyone got saved. Everyone got their miracle. Because sometimes kindness is the machine we need to turn on, not off. Sometimes humanity is the treatment that saves us all. And sometimes two fathers, standing in the darkness, can create enough light for both their sons to find their way home.